Well, good morning and Happy New Year, everyone. We really appreciate you sticking with us on these Sunday mornings all year long. It's that time of year where we take stock of what happened in local politics over the past year, and here to help us do that and also help us look ahead next Sunday in an encore episode are two of the ace reporters from the indispensable wire service of Beacon Hill, the State House News Service, Katie Lannan and Matt Murphy. Good to have you both with us. Katie, I want to start with you on this first question. You know, we're looking back on a year dominated by the pandemic. And there's Governor Baker, who came into this year with sky-high job approval ratings, has spent the year making painful, widely unpopular decisions, restrictions on businesses, closing schools, taking heat from left and right. And yet, despite a recent dip, he's still up around 70% approval. How the heck is he doing it?
Yeah, John, it's kind of hard to fathom if you look back to February or earlier that you'd still see high approval numbers for a governor who's sent kids home from school, who's shut down, you know, the whole economy more or less for a long period of time. But I think one of the things that works to his benefit, aside from the fact that he was tremendously popular with voters going into all this, is that we really are treading uncharted waters here. You know, no one really knows what to expect of a governor during a pandemic. I think a lot of people would not want to be in his shoes and know that it's a tough set of decisions to have to make. As you mentioned, there's been people who wish the governor would issue more restrictions, suspend dining again, close casinos, things like that. And other people who say he's hammering businesses kind of inappropriately. But overall, I mean, I think we've seen the Supreme Judicial Court kind of back up that the governor does have these powers, and I think that helps too. It's been vetted that he's in charge here. We've seen him kind of try to tread a middle ground, and he talks a lot about listening to the data. And while there's, you know, other people out there who say the data would lead them to different conclusions, that's where he's staying.
Matt, they say in politics sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Baker came into office in January 2015, right as we suffered the winter of snowpocalypse when the T shut down. And he was sort of branded as a fix-it guy anyway, and his popularity soared. I was seeing sort of the same phenomenon here. We have a catastrophe that he can't be blamed for, and people just like the idea of him being there doing his best to fix it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, especially early in the pandemic when people were scared, people were frightened. The governor did a good job off the bat of getting out in front of it, getting on camera virtually every day, updating people, telling them what to expect, what he was doing, how he was managing it. And he came across as someone empathetic and someone who understood that this was uncharted territory for a lot of people, that people were anxious, and that he was too, and he was doing his best. Now, we've seen some of his decision-making start to get questioned as we've gotten later into the pandemic and as people have grown frustrated and weary, quite frankly, of being locked up behind, in their houses and not being able to do the things that they would normally want to do. And you're hearing that from both sides, as Katie mentioned, from the business community, from people who don't think that he's doing things fast enough or being restrictive enough. But I think the vast majority of people are probably in that center area. And those are the people who feel that the governor is between a rock and a hard place and doing his best, perhaps as they would do and as they're doing in their own lives, just trying to make the best decisions they can, not knowing if they're right or wrong.
Yeah, well, another huge story this year is really coming to a climax as we're recording this, just a few days before Christmas, and that's the response to the protests over the summer, the murder of George Floyd, police brutality, issues of racial inequity. And we're apparently going to get sweeping police reform that, frankly, Matt, let me start with you, and let's just get brief comments from you here because we're up against a break. This is something I never thought I'd see. The police unions have always had tremendous clout up on Beacon Hill. What changed here?
Yeah, really a monumental accomplishment, and it was sort of a response demanded by the times. And we saw a level of cooperation that we don't often see here. The leadership in the House and Senate were operating on tight margins. There were a lot of a big range of opinions on this bill. They worked together with the governor to get to this place where everyone was sort of happy. No one got everything they wanted. Certainly, the police unions did not get everything they wanted, but there was really a recognition that this was the moment. If they were going to get something done, it had to be now, and it appears that they were able to find that middle ground.